What's up, y'all? Again, it's your boy Warren G. Uh, so these videos are just kind of uncut because this is a new phone, and I don't have the old like editing software or whatever that I had. I was using iMovie on iPhone, and this is Android, so it's just uncut, straight through. Just bear with me. Uh, I mean, one day I might try to figure out a better setup, but for now, this is what it is. So anyway, I want to make another quick video dealing with reloading and precision rifle and stuff. So there's a channel that I like. It's Everyday Reloading. My buddy Dennis, he's got a pretty good channel. He constantly uploads, and there are some things that we kind of talk about in his comments that I wanted to make quick videos over. So some of the stuff I've messed with, and some of the stuff I've found that somebody else mentioned it. But I just wanted to make a video about some things that you should consider before you start messing with powders. You're always going to find that there's a combo that works better, but when searching for specifically low SDs, this is something that I use myself, and a lot of my testing does basically go right with my theory. So basically, we're just gonna start on the 5.56 side. Basically, all I did is I went to Hodgdon's Reloading website. I put in, it's actually a 223 with a 77 grain bullet, but I just wrote 5.56, whatever. The only difference is max pressure. So I wrote three powders that I have, and basically all I did was I just went to 223, 77 grain, and I found three powders. I wrote the starting velocity for the charge, which 20.4 grains of Varget in their test barrel, which doesn't really matter for what we're doing with math. The test barrel was 2404 feet per second, and 22.8 was the max at 2710. So all I did was I got the difference in those speeds, right? So there's 306 feet per second between those speeds, and I basically I took the decimal point out, and I did 228 minus 204, and I made it 24. So basically what this means is that there's, if you divide them into each other, there's a, for every, man, I'm trying to say this the right way. For 2.4 grains, there's a 306 feet per second difference. And if you do this across all of the powder, and you'll get these numbers, right? So at the end, basically is for every zero point 0.1 of a grain is 12.7 feet per second with Varget. Now I know that pressure doesn't really work like this with your starting pressures, but you can do this testing yourself, but it's close, right? So for Varget, every 0.1 of a grain between the min and the max is 12.7 feet per second. And this number is going to come into play at the very end. 8208, I did the same thing. I get 9.5. This is actually my favorite, so far my favorite powder for the 5.56. And for stay ball match, there's 12.8 feet per second per 0.1 grain. The reason why I made this is because when chasing low SDs, the lower the number in the end, if all variables are controlled, let's just say that every piece of brass has the same internal case volume and every primer has the exact same amount of propellant, if you take all those variables out, your neck tension, all of that the same, right? The one with the lowest number should have the lowest SD simply because it's not as volatile, basically, of a charge. And whenever we're shooting 223s, it's very, very hard to get super, super low SDs. The more shots you shoot, the higher they go. But even in my testing, I don't think I got one under 12 maybe. I don't have my book out here, but basically what I'm saying is it matches, because if you consider like whatever your charge is. I'm just going to use these. So at 22.8, if I load all my rounds to 22.8, well, the scale is going to say 22.8, but every kernel of powder is not zero point 0.1. Every kernel is going to be, it may be 0.20 of the 0.1. So 5 grains might be 0.1 of a grain. 5 actual kernels of powder may be 0.1 of a grain of actual weight. So if you're varying, if you're not weighing out grain by grain by grain, your potential to have a higher SD is more with Varget than it is with 8208. Just because of the way that weight works. If you was to do like some of these scales, I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's like the scale that goes past 0.1. It goes like 2 numbers. So if this was 22.80, and then I load the next round at 22.88, that falls into a higher spread naturally than if I was to do the same thing with this powder. So it's not as simple as that because ignition, the primers all play into it. But just as a start, if you was to consider the min and the max, check out the difference of grains to get it and do this. It'll help you get lower SDs as long as your brass quality, like it doesn't even matter, like ignoring the rest of your brass quality and all of that. This is going to be your lowest potential to get for the lowest SDs. The highest potential for the lowest SDs, I should say. So anyway, this is just 3 of the powders that I got. I did the same for my 25 Creedmoor. And as you all automatically see, the 25 Creedmoor has basically, half, we're just going to say half as much of a potential for a low SD, or twice as much potential, technically. Twice as much potential for a low SD than my 223. If you look at the math, here's all the math. You can do it yourself. But in the end, it's much easier the higher you go in case volume to get low SDs. Like I've got some crazy SDs before with 300 Win Mag. And whenever I'm taking those numbers and I'm trying to get, everybody say less than a 10 SD for long range. If I'm trying to use that same amount of math, basically, then I'll be spinning for a while because it's harder to get it, right? These are already above a 10 SD. So if you was to kind of look at it in that state, 8208 would be my only powder to try. But it's much easier. So this is for my 25 Creed with a 134 ELDM. You can see that it's basically, they're automatically starting out with low SDs. Like I said, brass quality, how accurate you're throwing the powder, all of that plays into it. But to start off, whenever you're trying to do some load development, if you use this method that I have wrote out and did the math for, it's much, much easier to do, of all the powders that are out, to consider certain powders. And then you test those powders doing a round robin style of testing, and that sets you up for your lower SDs automatically. And then once you do that, you can start grouping, seeing what powder the barrel's like and your bullet combo likes. And in the end, you can make a very good combination very fast without having to just go to the store, buy 20 powders, test them all. By the time you get them all tested, your barrel's shot out. So anyway, that's just a little bit more of knowledge that I wanted to kind of pass out. I'm not tagging these videos specifically to try to get a lot of volume. Like I say, if anybody watches it, fine. If you don't watch it, that's also fine. But here's the info. And until the next one, y'all take care. Be careful. Stay blessed. Catch y'all on the next one. Peace.